Start then.
Hello, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. Welcome to this live stream. I'm super excited to be joined today by Bogdan, who will tell us everything about himself and the work he's doing in conjunction with Dzyga's paw. I've just got my own voice coming out of another ear as well over there, so that's clever. Well done me. So he is working in conjunction with Dzyga's paw with a project he'll tell us all about, drone labs, and we are fundraising here at ATP Geopolitics for drone labs and Dzyga's paw to provide hopefully lots of drone parts and components and essentially work towards getting drones to one particular unit. And again, Bogdan can tell us about that. He's going to tell us hopefully his story and how he's come to get involved in what he's doing right now. But alongside this, we are going to be obviously fundraising during this stream, and if you're watching it when it's not live, the links will still be relevant. ATPGEO.com/donate. I might even occasionally put this little banner up. Check this ticker at the bottom there, ATPGEO.com/donate. That's how we rock here. Like, I'm at the forefront of technology. Anyway, Bogdan, thank you so much for coming on by and talking to us about what you are doing. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yep, of course. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me for the meeting. I'm very happy to be here and share our stories. So I'm Bohdan. I'm originally an engineer. So I finished a bachelor degree in computer science, and then actually continued my path in this way till the PhD. Currently, I'm doing a PhD at Tartu University Hospital. So at Tartu University in general. So my primary background, technical one, has a very laser focus. So for already more than 8 years, I'm working with artificial intelligence in medicine. So I used to work with different kind of data in this field. And I trained a bunch of different models that can detect different kind of diseases from this data. Mostly it's about imaging, like X-rays, computed tomography, MRIs, whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure you know these weird words, right? So through the couple of, I would say, like more than 6 years, I have been a serial entrepreneur. I have created like 2 startups in this field.
Wow.
First one was Cardiovision. And we were trying to fight with cardiovascular diseases with the help of AI there. Killer number 1 worldwide. And then when COVID came, this company basically failed. And then we started a new one called Better Medicine. And now we are fighting with killer number 2, which is cancer.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep. So basically, we are creating tools for radiologists to detect cancer automatically and enhance the way how they do it, like to reduce the error, human rate error, and then increase the automation level. When the war happened, when the full-scale invasion happened in 2022, of course, all people in the country, they responded to this horror in their own way. So most of my close friends, they joined army directly, including my dad. Wow. And since that time, actually, I started I continued my primary activity, like a startup and better medicine and research in AI and medicine. But meantime, of course, I did volunteering and I fundraised money for different kind of stuff, covering like protections, helmets, walkie-talkies, like drones, etc., just to support and make sure that the guys who are protecting my ass basically are well covered with equipment and everything necessary to protect our country.
Yeah, interesting. So right at the beginning of the war, your dad signed up. So did he sign up to join the armed forces then?
Yeah, so he joined actually from the very beginning, but that was quite fun story because he's quite furious guy in a sense that he wanted to fight from the very beginning. But then he ended up in a military office, and then people just looked at him, and he's like 55 years old plus, and they said, well, how can we actually send you to the front line? So sit here and make some documentary stuff, right? But then he was like very pissed off because of that. He wanted like to join the the front line. And he actually tried a couple of months or even more. And then in 2023, basically a new brigade was created. And he became one of the surgeons there who works with UAVs and controls the stuff, basically. And he started working directly with technology and drones and all of this kind of stuff that is like a lot. That is basically quite trivial and famous in this war.
So, how did you then start getting into what you're doing now, and talk us about what you are doing now with regard to particularly drones?
Yeah, so basically for the last couple of years, my primary expertise and domain knowledge was by the way, it's a very important point to say that I'm a technical person, but I'm not a military guy. So I'm not an expert in this field. I actually read a lot about that. I analyze a lot of information. I talk to a lot of soldiers who work with the technology. I consult on some specific topics like AI as well. But yeah, I'm not a military guy. I haven't participated in battles directly, so I do not have this experience. How I ended up with producing drones in the very end. So my primary volunteering focus was DJI drones, specifically for air intelligence, because when my father joined Frontline, basically they started from the very beginning. They didn't have any antennas, like control stations, Starlinks, and all of these kind of generators and all of the infrastructure around based on which you start working with UAVs, right? So since that time, we tried to make our focus to make sure that his guys and he basically directly have this stuff to work. And usually, when the new unit starts working with UAVs, they start with something more simpler than rest of the arsenal around. So, and it is basically about DJI drones that cover mainly air intelligence tasks, right? So, and I basically had like experience in buying different types of these drones, and I understand like which subtypes are applied in which tasks, right? But in the very end, actually, the burn rate for this type of drones is very high. You might like lose a couple of units in a day, but one unit may cost like about a couple of $1,000. And then the question is how you can actually in the very end make the efficiency, like solve the same tasks with a much smaller amount of money.
So, what in terms of the burn rate, what are the main reasons for cycling through these drones? How they get lost?
Yeah. So and So and that is the entry point why we started this story, because the friend of mine, Dan, who serves in 47th Brigade, he called me and said that, well, you support us with the different stuff. We actually use this stuff to produce our own bombers inside of military stuff, inside of military organization. But now our guys, they cannot like fight and do engineering work. It is really non-trivial stuff. So the level of pressure from the frontline battles versus engineering work they do is actually insane. So he said that, hey, I know that you are in Lviv. Like, could you help me to some extent outsource their internal drone lab that is led by military engineers? And yeah, of course, I said that, well, let's do it. And basically, we gathered like Irinka, and other civilian friends here in Lviv who responded to this initiative, and we started doing all of that stuff that was created by Dan's military engineers. We just started replicating this production in Lviv in civilian life.
Yeah,
what was the
Yeah, I was just going to let people know, because I did initially say Dimko from Dzyga's Pool was going to be on this stream, but that was my mistake. So sorry for those who were expecting Dimko as well. But we obviously have Bogdan talking, and he mentioned Dan. So Dan is from the 47th, is that correct? 47th Brigade, and is one of, as you mentioned, Drone Lab's founders, or you're providing equipment for his unit.
Yeah. He's basically a leader of UAV unit in 47th Brigade, and he's one of the founders of this lab from the technical perspective, from the military context. So he knows what are the needs, what are the technological ideas that are most needed. and he basically is our primary person who creates the demand, right? So we know what we're going to produce for whom in which amounts.
Yeah, yeah. So, what were the needs then from, say, the 47th in this case? Like, what do they want you to provide for them?
Yeah, so the primary focus for their unit is basically protecting from infantry attacks from Russians, and their primary target is basically to stop these infantry attacks, and they use different kind of equipment for that. One way to deal with that is basically DJI drones. You have this dropping mechanism connected with DJI drones, and you take like a explosive mechanism below, and then just drop those stuff on top of the Russians. But then, actually, from what I started, it is very expensive and ineffective because DJI drones, they have very good cameras, and they actually are very good for air intelligence. But when you want to use them as something that takes some luggage and drops somewhere, then it's quite expensive and inefficient story. So these guys internally in their unit, they came up to the idea, what we actually, if we take the FPV drone that is kamikaze type, and then we actually create our dropper mechanism below and attach it so that we can actually use kamikaze drone a couple of times in a row. So you just send some bomb forward and then come back and do it a couple of times. So for the same price, like around $300, like $300, $500, depending on the stuff you are making from these FPV drones, you can basically convert this kamikaze FPV into reusable FPV bomber that is much more effective in this regard.
So I presume one of the things you have to do is to take the forward-facing camera and put that pointing down.
Yeah, so if we talk about what are concrete details, like what do we do with these FPV kamikazes to turn them into the bomber, so there are a couple of like critical moments here. So first one is that you need to introduce the turning mechanism. So you have the camera. Usually in FPV kamikaze, the position of this camera is fixed, so you cannot rotate that. But we create this rotation mechanism that has a couple of positions so that you can put it down or like under 45 degrees or whatever is needed, so we can control that. Then you also need to upgrade a bunch of different communication protocols, because when you, like Russians, it's not a new technology. I guess you heard about that. They basically have devices that can intersect video stream, so they can see what you see as an operator. So for kamikaze drone, usually it's not a very big deal because they just see what is flying to them. They can hide in advance, but it's not so painful. But when you have bomber, then you need to come back, right? So when you come back, basically, if they intercepted your video, it's like deadly mistake, actually.
Right, of course,
So
yeah.
yeah, that is why in bomber you need to think a lot about security measures and how you can actually think about this aspect. It is very important. And yeah, there are a couple of other stuff that are crucially important. For example,
Well, I was just going to say, before you go on to the other bits, which we'll get to because it's super important, what security measures can you put in place to stop your feed being hijacked?
Yeah, so for example, most of FPV kamikazes, they use analog video, so you can turn it into digital video stream that is really hard to intercept, and then which is basically protected. So this channel of communication, even if you intercept it, you won't be able to decode, so you won't be able to see what is happening there.
So is that the same for, I'm treating my audience as ignorant as I am here, right? And sorry, audience, if you're not, but I'm projecting onto you. Is that like radio? So you have your analog radio, old school radio waves, FM, medium wave, whatever. That's how you can communicate with your feed from your controller, and you're turning that into digital radio, essentially. Yep. A digital feed, right?
Yeah, roughly speaking, yes. So that having your receiver on some specific frequency, you cannot just then accept the signal, but you need to have some decoder. So in order to have this decoder, you need to have like corresponding device, and it becomes actually very non-trivial task how to decode it. Yeah, so it's one of the crucial things when you actually work with bombers. Then we have another stuff, like for example, drone stands. It is from one side, it seemed very stupid and simple task. You need to create like a drone stance that will basically create a space between the ground and bomb you attach to the bomber, so that you can basically start flying, right? And then you need to come back, and when you fly down, then you need to actually be careful, because you will destroy your drone, right, during this landing process. So that is why you need to create drone stands, 4 of them, that will be solid, and you can actually make them you can put them up and down so that they will actually do their work. So, and for example, designing this system, we have a specific person who has physics background. He is a mechanic with like over 40 years of experience, who designed different kind of mechanical details. And basically this guy was thinking about this issue and doing different kind of iterations of drone stands until we actually reach the state where soldiers are happy. So the drone stand is one of the core components, I would say, along with this rotation mechanism as well, because you need to think how to make so that your camera is not shivering and creating like additional artifacts, because your video will go down. And when you're bombing, you need to have very, very clear video stream and with the high quality, because otherwise you won't be able to recognize details well in the bushes or like under the trees, etc.
So does that make obviously that's going to increase the cost of a drone, is the quality of the video, or the quality of the camera, and then of course you've got thermal imaging or night vision. So yeah, talk to us about
that. I would say that this video stream modification is one of the most costly component, because to have the high quality video, you need to pay enough, right, for that. If we talk about the thermal imaging, it's even like more expensive, but there are a couple of challenges with this stuff, because you need, like most of the thermal cameras, they are analog. In order to turn the analog into the digital way, you need to have actually some specific devices that work really well. So it's one of the R&D we are working towards, but currently we work only with daylight cameras for FPV bombers. And then we have actually another components for communication, like antennas that are communicating to control station and getting basically the commands from the operator. So there are a lot of important aspects here as well. For example, you have some specific frequencies. If one frequency was jammed, what you are going to do? Like, will you lose the board, or you have some other alternative frequencies at the same time, or you have actually jumping frequency along specific range, so that you can actually adopt under the environment. So we're also working in that direction and adding more and more frequencies and trying to make it robust to the jammers.
And I presume you know, as an operator, when you are being interfered with, electronic warfare interference, because you lose the feed. Is that when you switch to? Is that when you know to switch the frequency?
Yeah, usually in our case, the frequency switched automatically because of some mechanism how we did that. And usually, if there is a specific device called, I don't know, in Ukrainian, it's like. It's like a frequency jumper, let's say, and this frequency jumper has a smart synchronization between the control station versus drone, so that if it changes randomly, jumps randomly to some specific frequency, it can actually synchronize the receiver and transmitter so that it can communicate well. So, and then operator doesn't
because
think
otherwise
about that.
Otherwise it's going to switch frequency, and then that's not going to be the frequency of the controller, and it'll just fall out the sky, right?
I would say that there are a couple of levels how we can make it tricky for enemies. First one is just to give a couple of constants, right? So that you work in different frequencies at the same time, switching them semi-manually, let's say. But another level would be just to give this device that covers the entire range. It's not about a couple of constants, but it's about like hundreds of different frequency values. So we are working on that direction currently, just to secure this second, more mature way how to deal with this issue.
There's a question here from JR, who's actually in the background fielding questions. He says, both thermal and RGB drones are common. Have you looked into drones that capture near infrared imagery? So near infrared data distinguishes vegetation from non-vegetative objects, those sensors are cheaper. Anything along those lines that you know about?
Yeah, so personally, we haven't applied this type of cameras yet. I know that people usually use them in instead of thermal cameras. For example, if you have a car and you want actually to ride in the darkness, right? You may have actually a thermal camera and like thermal device that is quite costly to buy, but you also can have these kind of infrared type of cameras that basically may be a cheaper alternative to some extent. That is one use case I have heard about, but usually, actually, if people have enough finances, they take thermal camera because it's much better, of course. Another use case was about, if I'm not mistaken, the latest versions of DJI drones, they have this infrared type of cameras, and you get with this or autel type of drones, so that you can actually use it in order to detect other drones in the air, because of radio and communication, it can detect like the sources of radio waves. So that is why in the video stream they are quite visible. So usually people just hanging in the autel drone or other drones that have this supportive type of camera, and they are sensitive enough to see like another kamikazes or air intelligence drones or any other stuff that is flying in the air.
And then what do you do with that? What would the operator do? Like because I presume this is a drone dropping, an IED dropping drone, right? So and then it can sense another drone around. Do you just get out of dodge?
It of course depends on the what is the final target, right? So
Yeah.
if it is something like for example, Russians started fighting with our Baba Yaga drones. I guess that you have heard about that. Definitely, it's a big like octocopter,
octocopter, hexacopter, yeah, big one.
Yeah, that can carry like a lot of explosive material. So it's basically can carry around like 8-10 kilograms, right? So, and then you have a drone interceptor, and basically Russians started attacking our bombers, big bombers like Baba Yaga, with the help of interceptors. So if you like, if our like guys, they see that there is something big and you can attack that with other drone interceptors, then of course you will attack it ASAP. If it's something like FPV kamikaze, it's really hard to actually catch it, right? So it's better to hide or like use jam device against that. It really depends. Yeah, if you, for example, detected a long range drone, then of course you will have another measures, right? The interception concept also will work really well with these type of guys. Yeah, but if we talk about specifically bombers in this context, then unfortunately you cannot use them to counter-attack other types of drones because it's inefficient. Maybe I can imagine some very rare examples, like when you have, for example, a like bigger bomber from Russian side, and then you have our smaller one who is above the bigger bomber, and you can just drop bomb. But it's rather like a Marvel type of story, you know. We have such stories, and we have videos. A lot of them.
I've seen a couple of videos. Yeah, I've shared a
Yeah.
couple of videos of that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like there are some type of jokes like then you take the stick under your drone and you like use it to bomb the bigger bombers, but it's rather exceptions and just more for fun rather than
I've seen some Russian interceptor drones now that have been developed with kind of a lance coming out them with an explosive charge, just a small explosive charge. And I guess it means that those drones are reusable. So they can ram, usually like a reconnaissance drone, a fixed wing reconnaissance drone. They can ram it and then an explosion happens, that far away from the drone. You've got some lance and then it does enough damage to the reconnaissance drone, it falls out the sky, then they can return back and use that drone again. So I guess, as what you'll be doing, as I said, with the Russians and the Ukrainians all over the shop, will be playing this cat and mouse game of trying to come up with the adaptations and then coming up with countermeasures.
Yeah, we call this type of drones actually not bombers, but net gun, let's say. So that actually the cool point about FPVs in general and why it's actually so famous now, because it's actually quite it is a platform that you can modify easily over a wide range of different tasks. For example, if it's kamikaze, of course, we know the story. The same with bomber, but the same stuff you can do with like net gun. You can change this dropper mechanism below, and you can attach like either net gun or like gunshot. I also seen a couple of examples when people just use gunshots in order to shoot some bigger aims, bigger targets. Again, it might not work out against a kamikaze in the air, but if you have some slower drones, you detect it and you are like quite close to them, then you definitely can use these gunshots and net guns basically.
Yeah, shotguns. Yeah. So going back to these drones that drop IEDs, that's got to be a dangerous thing to try and set up. And we've heard horror stories of operators, losing their hands, dying, and all sorts with having to put on these both for FPV drones and drones that drop bomb or IEDs. So do you think a lot about the mechanism and how to make it safe as possible?
Yeah.
You've talked about the platform to give you some space to obviously attach it to hopefully safely. Talk to us about the risks involved and how you get an explosive to not explode and to be triggered only at a certain point.
Yeah, so unfortunately that was quite like often the case when people just were like damaged by this kind of story. Then you attach the explosive mechanism and then it just instantly activates by itself. So in our case, we do not think about activation mechanisms because it's very it really depends on the unit. They have their own practices and they have their own trusted producers of activation mechanisms. So in this case with Danilo, they have the specific version of activation mechanism they use always, and they're like sure 100%. It has a couple of levels of protection, so the probability of having this type of event that it will like work in advance or like self-activate, it's very, very rare. So they haven't even had these type of situations. So that is why we do not care too much about this kind of mechanism itself, but we think a bit about that from the perspective of dropping mechanism, because it is the stuff we are responsible for directly, right? So in our case, it is also the story that we have a local producer that has experience, is the same guy, this mechanic guy I mentioned about. So, and he produces these dropping mechanisms already a couple of years in a row. And Danilo and his soldiers, they use it like over a year already. So we know for sure that this mechanism, I mean, dropper mechanism versus activation mechanism, they give enough levels of safetiness to their soldiers, so just to not to be worried a lot.
It's funny, exactly what you just said, in terms of you leave that to the units and they don't trust anyone else because they want to be responsible for their own trigger mechanisms. That's exactly what Richard Woodruff said, who I interviewed, who does the same sort of thing as you in developing drones and getting them to units. I think Achilles is the unit that he provides a lot of stuff to, and they have exactly the same situation. Like, we will just, if they receive drones that do whatever, they'll take apart whatever it is that they want to be responsible for and then kind of rebuild it. So there's often a lot of what you want is to make the whole process as efficient as possible. You don't want to send something to a unit that then the unit then has to rejig it, recalibrate it, and
Yeah, exactly.
it.
I would say that the very important point here would be to have this alignment and synchronization with the unit. It is one of the, I would say, that strong sides of us, that we are like 100% aligned, because we started our work of the workshop inside of this kind of military unit, right? Let's say, and then we outsourced it physically just to Lviv. So we know all of the protocols, all of the software, all of the things happening in their unit, all of the practices. So we are like aligned with them 100%, and we know like what is desired from their side, what is not, like, and what next ideas we need to produce. And also some units, they also actually have trusted vendors for these activation mechanisms, so that they do not care about themselves, but rather buy like ready-made solutions, but actually those that have the name in the market already.
So just before we go on to some more discussion, let's remind people of, actually we'll come on to your site there in a second. Just remind people to go to atpgeo.com/donate, and you will come to this, the Dzyga's Paw page. We'll just refresh that. We are running a and I'm going to mention this now, so give us a couple of minutes here to explain. We're running a raffle on donations, and this will include anyone who's already donated. There's been some insanely generous donations. I'm not saying that everyone has to do this, but if you've got a spare $4,000, as this British person JD has, then that will be amazing. But any little helps, or any little or big helps. Thank you so much to this person from the Netherlands, with 1,500, and then someone else from Germany with 2,300. So incredibly generous people, plus all the other very, very generous humans contributing to this valuable cause, raising so far $10,800. But we hope, dollars. But we hope to really push that on for the rest of this month. And I just want to say a little bit before we go to talk about countermeasures. I want to talk about the raffle that we're doing. So $20, if you, for every $20 you donate, you will get a raffle ticket. So obviously $100, just in case you don't understand simple maths. $100 is 5 tickets. Check me out. And you will be put into the raffle for one of these 3 prizes. So a big bundle of merch, a signed flag, and a patch from the 47th Brigade. That's the Dzyga's Paw merch and all sorts of stuff there. A downed Russian drone, FPV drone, is also up for grabs as a prize. And then one of our custom paintings. So this is fantastic. This is a local. So we'll start over there with the local. I'm just going to see the discussion of this.
It's called Andre, I guess. Andre Draw is one of the friends of Danilo as well, so he's contributed to our lab a lot.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, the author of these paintings.
Yeah, so it's Ukrainian art platform, Friends of the Art Store Vidro, Ukrainian art platform that transforms Ukrainian traditional art into modern art. It's quite popular in Ukraine, and they're willing to give their artwork for a raffle. They offer these 3 pictures for a winner to choose from, actually 4 pictures there. So you can choose from one of these pictures, and that's fantastic. So that's one of the prizes. Then, as mentioned, a down Russian drone that you can hang up and say, hey, you know, here's a piece of that war in Ukraine. Or you get yourself a big bundle of merch as well, signed flag patches from the 47th, etc., etc. So if you head over to atpgeo.com/donate, you will get sent to this page and follow the donate link. So make sure, I think that you might ask you, I don't know, but it might ask you for details. Make sure you put ATP geopolitics as a reference if it's requested. You can we've got a menu of things that you can contribute towards: antennas, digital compasses, drone comms pack, completed drone, a 10 times bomber bundle, digital video system, all sorts of stuff that helps to build these drones together to make what the units need. And you can read a little bit about that. So thank you for allowing me time to say that. Now, Bogdan, do you want to talk about Copternia, your website here? And I mean, you've already been talking about this, but you know, what does this money go towards providing, and how do you work it all out, and what is needed?
Yeah, of course. I just before going there, I just want to also say thank you to the guys who already donated and are going to donate, because it is a very motivational aspect in a way that what is Copternia is a team of engineers who are working in other works full time, and they work in this volunteering project during evenings, during weekends. So, and it may be like, well, comparing with the work that is done by soldiers is of course nothing, right? It's like completely 2 different level of exhaustions. But when you work full time in one work and then work like over weekends and evenings in other work, like week after week, you become a bit exhausted as well. So, and when we see that people outside, they actually actively support this project, I just can literally see the energy coming in into these guys, and they're like, "Whoa, how it can be possible!" Like, and they work even much harder, just ending up with 10 p.m. in Saturday, Sunday, and they continue working. So it's very important for us to understand that we are supported with other guys, and we have material to work with, because in the very end, we won't be able to craft these bombers without you.
That's amazing. That makes me quite emotional, actually. So that's really cool. So yeah, you know, your help, guys out there, it means something, as well as obviously being a tangible way of raising money for bits and pieces and stuff to go to the front line. It's actually also an energizer for the people doing the work as well. So that's really important. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah. So if we talk about the expenses and what are what costs basically we for what we spend our money on. So there is one bomber that costs around $300. And it includes those stuff you already mentioned: antennas, dropper mechanism, video system, other communication components, also standing mechanism and rotation mechanisms we buy and partially create, partially buy in local producers. And all people working in our project, they're working on volunteering basis. We have only one person full time. We actually found a local donator who supported salary to this guy, and this guy is on the full time and almost full night supports the operational stuff. What is happening? So basically, he teaches new people. He distributes the work. He plans how we release new versions of bombers and how we properly deploy those stuff to our friends from dance unit. But all of the rest people, they just work completely in a volunteering mode. So that is why all of the expenses and all money you provide to this project, they will go directly to the components and directly to the stuff we use to create these bombers. If we talk about the impact and efficiency of this story, so I would like to stop here as well a bit. So roughly your $300 donated, it's one bomber, and dance unit uses around 10 bombers a week. So basically, if you donate like 3,500K, then it will support dance unit for 1 week of daily work. They just usually flying like from the very morning till the very evening, when you can use daily light cameras, and you can protect and control the situation.
So that's to say that already we have helped out Dan's unit to the tune of 3 weeks worth. If you look at what we've raised at the moment, would that be right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, I just wanted to say and maybe compare a bit, just to make it more clear that one FPV kamikaze, one hit of FPV kamikaze costs around $300. But in our case, like if we say that on average one drone can fly and back and forth and back like 10 times, like 10, 12 times, it means that this cost is divided by 10, 12 times. And our latest modifications of drones, they actually can even fly up to 50 times. Like we have been reported by soldiers then.
Wow, because I was going to ask you about this. So do you know what the average survival, what the average number of flights for a bomber drone?
Yeah, usually it's 10, 12 times. Because of some wise engineering decisions, we increased it like to 15, 20, and then sometimes we even like have these extraordinary guys that are very endurant, let's say, and they work like over 50 times. So you can you imagine like $300 and this drone basically drops 50 bombs. It's like almost for free. I mean, heat is counted for free. For free, it's just a couple of dollars, comparing with any other equipment you can use in the front line.
That's absolutely brilliant. So, so it this is an efficient use of resources. It's going straight to these components, these drones, and these drones are going straight to the units. The units want these drones. They are. I mean, I presume the unit feeds back to you with needs as and when they arise.
Yeah, so we have daily, not daily, but weekly calls with them, and we have syncs on two primary stuff. The first one is the R&D component, like what are the top problems our bombers are lost for, and how we can improve the lifespan, and how we can also improve other stuff that are not related only to the endurance of the drones, but also like efficiency of bombing and any other like parameters. And the second aspect is the burn rate, because burn rate, it really depends on the place where dense units are fighting. So sometimes it may be like 15 drones a week, sometimes it may be less, but on average, on bigger scale, it usually like 10 bombers per week. So, and we synchronize with them on weekly basis and discuss of all of these details. What are the burn rate? Do they need more or less this time? Like, and how we can modernize and make it better.
So Andrew Perpetuo, who does an amazing job of analyzing so much data, all the video feeds, he brings out his loss lists. He has his map, which is insanely good. So Andrew is listening in. So thanks, Andrew, for joining here. Are drones lost mainly due to electronic warfare, shot down, crash, wear and tear? What proportionally do you have a sense of what are the most common ways of them being lost?
Yeah, so one of the top problems are basically it is a daily bombers. Then that is why if you actually fly down, then it can be easily shot, even if it's 10-inch FPV, so it can be shot down. Then we have a serious issue with video jamming. So Russians, they just know roughly what is the frequencies, and they can jam, and you can control your drone, but you cannot basically see what is happening, right? So that is why we are thinking how we can actually, for example, introduce the unit that when you lost the video, this unit can initiate the home returning process. So the drone know like roughly what is the angle it should turn, and then come to home back, so that it will restore the video stream so that pilot can save this drone, right? So these two challenges are the biggest ones. And they rarely crash actually, but
Right.
if you most of the problems, they happen when you land down to the put the drone down after the work, because it's usually done very quickly, and you need to be like quite aggressive with this, right? Because you just land it down and you need to hide back. So that is why usually during this landing process some details are broken. So that is why this
Right.
standing stuff, it's very important to be very solid and very reliable in this regard.
Is it like a net? Would that be the best thing? Just to lay out a quick net on for, an elasticated net, set it up, land it, safe. I don't know.
Good idea, but I guess that well, usually you do not land in the place you work, because you just do not want to be demascate, like Russians will see your position
Yeah.
basically.
I was
So,
just
and I'm
wondering
not.
if you had, God, I'm sure other people have thought, Wade, but if you had like poles that were that tall, right?
Mhm.
And you could like pull four apart, like, and they had a bit like one of those mini trampolines that you can jump up and down on, like just the size of a single human, like something that's that big, that sits that far off the ground.
The problem
Bosh.
is that you need always to land down in the same position, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. You need to change it
But that's what I mean.
constantly.
Like, no, it's like you could carry it four poles together, put it in your backpack, bring it out,
Mhm.
pull it out, stick it down on the ground, elasticated landing, bosh, pick it up, put it back together, run off.
If you can control completely the process of coming back home, then maybe it will work out. I'm not sure. It usually happens in the very chaotic environment when you just need to drop that bomber and run away. So
Yeah.
usually you just do not control this environment so well, so that you can actually choose the place where you can land down. So that is why, yeah, soldiers just asked us to make this standing mechanism solid, because usually they just drop them in the very solid surface, and that is why it's usually destroyed because of these reasons as well. It's one of the top reasons.
So,
Unfortunately,
speaking about what you were just saying about losing contact with a drone, and if it can have a homing mechanism, then that would be really useful. And we have heard about this being developed. Grunge thing here, Ronnie says, does a drone hover or stay in place when the signal is lost, so a connection can be made again, or does it just fall?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in drone, you have this term called fail-safe mechanism. So fail-safe mechanism is basically the algorithm that is predefined on the situation when you lost the control. And depending on how you configure this fail-safe mechanism, it will behave correspondingly. Some people, they have, like, for example, digital compasses, and they use information from digital compass to understand where was the direction they actually came from. That is why this homing mechanism can work out, and that is something we already tried out, and it's actually quite good idea to try. Another drones, actually, they just can fly down or like fly up for X amount of seconds, so that if drone fly up, it can actually go out of the zone of jammer mechanism. So, and that is why you can get the control back. So there are a lot of mechanisms how you can fight with this situation, depending on the level of autonomy of the drone. Because, for example, if you have some artificial intelligence on board that has the coordinates of the drone specifically, we have a lot of development around that side as well, so that without GPS, you know your coordinates, your acceleration, your vector of where you are going. So with this kind of information, you actually even not only come back with one direction, but you can actually try to attack from different angle, for example, so that you fly to the target and then you lost the control. Your drone knows where it is, and then it comes back and flies from different direction where a jammer is smaller or
Right.
weaker.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of there is entire range of different possible options how to make your drone intelligent in case of control loss. It's entire separate science, I would say.
So you are someone who has worked previously in the domain of artificial intelligence, and there's been so much talk about AI applications with drones.
Yep.
And I think people probably got too excited about AI and drones, thinking it would be the answer to everything. And it's probably not quite as simple as that. And it also takes time. It takes time to kind of work on these things and test them and come back, and you're doing it while in a war, and et cetera, et cetera. So is AI anything that you're playing around with personally and countermeasures, and how successful has that been applied, not in your case, but just in general? Do you understand AI with drones?
Yeah, so AI actually this term was always a bubble, right? People tended usually to overestimate the capacities and overpredict the nearest future with this stuff. Yeah, I do work with AI. In Copternia, we also work with AI, but in a sense of integration. We do not develop our algorithms because it requires huge amount of time, data, a lot of people full-time working on AI specifically, like months and years of work. So I would say that it wouldn't make sense to do that for us as a volunteering team at all until we have finances and we made out of business out of this story, right? But we do not plan to do that yet in the nearest a couple of months or maybe even more. So what we do, we basically investigate the market. We try to understand what are the good producers of AI boards, and basically we think how to integrate them into our bombers, because usually we have plenty of different solutions with AI for different type of tasks. The question would be how you can easily put it into your drone and make so that it actually behaves as expected, as system would like to behave in this regard. So I can actually do a brief overview of AI applications, if it makes sense, if it's interesting for the audience in the context of FPV. So again, I would come back to the topic of AI autonomy levels. I guess it will be easier to explain in this side. So let's say the entry point of AI would be, okay, maybe let's come from other angle. There are three primary components of AI in drones. First one is video understanding. So basically, you need to understand who is on the video, where, and basically in which amounts, what are the categories of objects detected there, like whether you have forests or like fields or whatever, right? So you need to get the semantic of the video stream you have. The second component is something I already mentioned, is localization. You do not have GPS coordinates and devices. Well, usually people put the GPS devices on board, and they hope that maybe somewhere in the battlefield they will catch the signal and get the coordinates, but usually it doesn't work specifically with the smaller drones. So that is why you need to come up with some methods that are usually AI based, just to self-localize yourself in the local coordinate system with the help of neural networks and video stream of the camera that is attached in the bottom of the drone. So thus you have a pretty good estimation of your location with these methods, and knowing your position, you can do much more than just without. And the last component is control. You need to understand video, then know your location, and then understand the behavior logic based on these inputs, plus the devices from the onboard sensors, for example, EMU or like altitude computer or like accelerometer, etc. So you fuse all of these data streams into one module that is controlling drone in the very end. And in this context, we may have a couple of different scenarios for autonomy. First one is, for example, hovering. I actually seen in the chat that people were asking, like, can you hover automatically on the target with Bomber? Yeah, it's possible. And even you not need to have a very strong AI for that. You need to have barometer, and you need to have basically a rough understanding of your location. So that is why you can hover like easily. It may be a bit non-trivial to understand why it's so complicated, because in Mavics and DJIs, this feature is out of the box. But having this feature out of the box, these guys actually worked for years, and they invested into their R&D departments to stabilize these drones so that it can actually goes up and down and can control itself. So this task is more or less
particularly covered. Sorry to interrupt, but is that needed for things like wind and stuff like that?
Yeah, so basically it's needed for compensate wing power, or even without wing, you will need to compensate. Basically, you need to control your motors in a way that it will stabilize the position. But in order to stabilize the position, you need to have at least rough estimate the position, right? If you do not know where you're located, then the motors will just work randomly or almost randomly, right? So an FPV drone or like Bomber, this task becomes quite non-trivial because you need to do it almost by your own or using like some open source software. And then the next level of autonomy is last mile targeting, when basically you as a pilot, you choose the target in the video stream, and then your drone can do the work instead of you for the last like hundreds of meters.
Yeah, that's where we've seen the most success recently, or at least the most evidence of AI being used.
Yeah.
Certainly as the end user, me being the end user, being watching the videos. So there's been quite a few announcements about the success of the last kind of 500 meters or so, being, you lock in on the target, and actually the closer you get to the target, the more likely there is going to be electronic warfare interference, and so that's when you need to lock on, and then it visually finds the target, and then it doesn't need to talk back to the operator. That's how I'd understand it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the most frequently used use cases when you have a very big, like very well covered with jammers area, and then you can visually like localize the target before you fly closely enough to be jammed, and then you choose the target and AI does the work. But actually, current state of last mile targeting solutions is, I would say, it's quite primitive in a sense that it doesn't take into account like obstacles and more complicated scenarios, it's usually you can work either with static
Out in the
aim.
open, by in the middle of a field. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually in the middle of the field or in the road, you can target the standing like aim or actually moving one. So it probably will work if the trajectory is more or less direct if you want to hit. But if there is something between you and the aim, then most probably these algorithms will go crazy. But of course, they are improving with every month and even week. So hopefully they will go further. So the next level of autonomy would be to detect automatically everything that is happening on the scene. And you can say to your drone, hey, could you fly to the sector, then detect some stuff, then prioritize the target, and then hit by yourself. So, but for that, you will need to have neural networks for these detection and segmentation and scene understanding. So the drone can actually detect automatically the target and then hit for the last couple of meters or hundreds of meters. And then I guess the next level would be you solve this localization issue, you solve this kind of video stream understanding issue. You want to make so that your drone can actually behave really well with other drones and they can actually prioritize the targets and understand, well, I will take the first track in this kind of range and you will take the last one and then we'll do the job in between. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, it's called basically swarm technology.
So alongside, so that's fascinating, and thank you. That's a really good insight into what's needed and what the different levels are. But if so, say you get to a point where you just send your drone up and then sit back and have a cup of tea and then wait for it to do its thing and then blow something up. Is the drone doing the AI thinking? So we understand that AI requires quite a bit of computing power. That then requires quite a bit of power, and so that would add to the weight of the drone, or maybe it's negligible. I don't know with what the amount of computing needs to be done, or can that computing be done back with the controller and kind of sent? I don't understand. Like, I presume it all has to be done on the drone.
Yeah, it's a very good question, by the way. One more. Yeah, usually in drone you have, in most of the cases, heavy AI, it's deployed to the cloud, right? So you just have some situation, then you gather data, send to the cloud, to the very powerful computational resources, and then you get the response from AI back, right? That is at least how, for example, ChatGPT works, right? Or any other AI heavy services. But in this case, of course, we cannot send data to internet and to the cloud. So you must do everything on edge. And from technical perspective, it's a very big challenge because you need to understand embedded really well. You need to understand AI and intersection between these two stuff. And then basically what happens, you take the computer companion. It's like, for example, people might heard about Raspberry Pi. It's very familiar example of computer companion that has some computational power inside, right? And then you deploy your AI specifically for this computer companion that does all of the computations on board of the drone. And then it communicates directly through the wiring to the controller, basically flight controller. So, and then you have your camera stream that goes to the computer companion that transforms some behavior of the drone and gives the commands back to the flight controller, and then it happens basically all of this autonomy around. So it's a very
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, it's very challenging task because usually people, they use Raspberry Pi as a out of the box solution. Well, it's not out of the box. You need to waste a lot of time and invest into the development, of course, right? But it has its own limits. You cannot deploy a bunch of different neural networks that will understand video and then localize yourself and then compare with any other stuff around. So for that, you will need to create your own motherboard, little one that will be really powerful, that will be capable of using a bunch of different neural networks and running and combining all of these processes together. It's a very non-trivial technical task and challenge, I would say.
So that then makes it more expensive, a little bit more heavier, and all of the above, right? So I've got a whole bunch of questions for you, if you don't mind, and thank you to the audience for getting engaged here. So Andrew again says, can software help you bomb while moving? For example, in a dive, perhaps knowing when to drop or not drop the bomb during a bombing run.
Of course. That is one of the ideas we have. So actually, to bomb efficiently with the help of FPV bomber, you need to be an extra pilot. You need in your head to control the drone fully manually, and then you need to count the features from the video based on features of the video. For example, the wings of the grass, right, or bushes or whatever. You need to count the power of the wind in order to actually drop in a way that the bomb will reach the target. It's a very non-trivial task, and you need to do that usually on the fly as you go, just not to be hit or like usually you just do not have enough time. So you just fly and then drop bomb and just go back very quickly. So, but for AI and algorithms around, actually, it's definitely possible. There is a thing that is called like ballistic calculator. So you have like in a Call of Duty, you have like the target in the video. And this target is the prediction where the bomb will land roughly, right? Based on the properties like wind power, like the distance, the altitude of the drone, etc. So it's very famous idea, like feature of the AI-based systems when you create these ballistic calculators and you assist your operator in order to reach the target in the bombing process.
Interesting. So thank you, Andrew, for that question. Aussie Bugger says, using AI, could a drone navigate using celestial objects? So maybe looking upwards to actually find out where it is rather than downwards. Don't know, it'd be accurate enough.
Let's say, yes, it's possible. Unfortunately, won't say how.
Okay. And here we have another one. Can drones detect jammers, electronic warfare, and auto direct the drone to attack the location based on its jamming signal, or does it need to be manually targeted? In fact, someone else says here, why are jammers not automatically attacked? They are screaming, "I'm here, please attack me at this location."
Yeah.
Thanks, Ivo Valiek and Mr. Squiggle.
Theoretically, it's possible for sure. For that, you will need to have a data fusion. So basically, you will need to have a frequency reader on board of the drone and give another source of information to the visual one that will correct the drone direction. So I haven't heard that people do it automatically. Usually I know scenarios that you have like the frequency reader like in operator, and then basically you manually know the direction where you should go and then find some guys who are jamming in some specific direction. But also the challenge is that current modern warfare is basically so hugely suppressed with different jamming techniques then it's far away from being unique, right? So you will have huge amount of noise around all possible like drones flying around and jammers and whatever can be imagined in that direction, right? So it's really non-trivial to actually locate the exact point or even vector where it is happening, basically.
You hear
because of a lot of sources.
Yeah, you hear these different news pieces about, say, I think the UK have produced this and someone else as well, microwave pulses being able to take out drones, drop them out of the sky with maybe a kilometer range. Yeah. I'd imagine something like EMPs, electromagnetic pulses or something. I mean, the problem is you take your own drones out as well, maybe. But, you know, are there things afoot? Are people developing ways that are actually being used of taking out drones on a slightly larger scale in the sky? Is this something you've heard about?
Yeah, of course. It's a very hot topic, like already more than a year, I would say. Our ex-commander of the, so basically the guy who rules the forces of UAV device, not only UAV, but autonomous machines, right? In general, Sukharevsky, he said about trials from our side that we have like laser trials. I mean, basically for this application you described this year in February already. So we had some successful trials in that direction as well. But I haven't heard about stories that it actually worked in the front line efficiently. So I think that there are plenty of R&Ds in this direction. There are probably a lot of MVPs already ready, but it's definitely far away from being like deployed already in the front line, like either massively or whatever. I haven't heard any of the soldier who would describe that it happened, it efficiently worked out, and we use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that. So a few other questions, lots of questions really. Is the drop, JR says, is the drop height predetermined, or can the timer on the explosive device be adjusted mid-flight? Well, actually, there's a question that predates this question. So first of all, when you are so sorry, JR, we'll come to your question in a second. Let's understand first, for people like me who are ignorant, when you are dropping IEDs from a drone, what are the different types of things that you can drop, and how do they get triggered? How do they explode?
Okay, somehow we missed this topic, but it's a very important one, right? So usually the most frequent type of things you use just bomb. You just drop it and it just explodes instantly. Then you can also use your bomber as a miner, like remote miner. You just drop mine and it will be activated after basically it is triggered by somebody, right? Then you can also have these suspensions of explosion activation, but actually I haven't heard a lot about that. So usually people, when they bomb, then they detect target, like, and they try to aim it into it directly with bomb, and that it explodes like instantly with the physical hit of the target. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that these two scenarios are the most frequent ones. So mining
Yeah.
and bombing without these suspensions, because, well, maybe some units they use it somehow, but yeah, I haven't heard about this story frequently enough.
So in other words, JL's question is kind of moot, because you don't really have predetermined, you don't really have timers. It's just on impact. Explosions are generally on impact, or mines, as you say. So what else do we have? Is there a way, you've kind of answered this, is there a way to pinpoint where the jammer is? I mean, you've said that there's a challenge because there's so much noise that it's quite difficult to do that. But I guess if you have some kind of device on board that does give you an indication of where jamming is coming from, you can, if it's only a single jamming, you can, I guess, you follow the strength of the signal as the operator. Would that be the case?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I do not want to speculate. Unfortunately, I do not have enough experience to answer this question. I may hypothesize that it's definitely possible, maybe with this kind of specific type of cameras that can catch the signal, or any like other reconnaissance devices. Basically, you have like these hand devices that can read signals, but you also have like much more expensive ones that can localize basically the sources of signal, right? But usually people do not use these expensive devices to localize jammers, because it's way too expensive. They are used like to much more expensive targets.
Yeah, I mean, JR was talking about, with the data on being jammed, be interesting for creating a heat map to locate and flush out static jammers. I don't know if that's anything you'd know about, but obviously, yeah, people on the front are going to be wanting to take out drone operators, enemy drone operators, enemy equipment and personnel just in general, but also jammers too. But what's the most common way of taking out jammers? Just visually spotting them and then getting like drones or artillery to take them out, rather than have FPV drones that kind of go around, find out where the jam is coming from, and then react to that and hit them.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, unfortunately, also I'm not very competent in this. I may hypothesize again that yeah, actually people use whatever they have at hands, right? Artillery, or like FPV or whatever. The main source would be just to detect this target, and usually people can use, for example, DJI drones to visually like see the antennas or like whatever the stuff. Or you have like a team who is specifically investigating the sources. I don't know the proper name for English name for this, but there are like teams who specifically investigate what is happening in this electronic warfare, right? So, and they analyze this information and pass to the drone pilots, for example, and then they will attack or counterattack. But yeah, I guess it's better to invite like person who works with electronic warfare, like specifically.
Benny Pie asks, are the Russians implementing AI on their drones, and how does their tech compare to Ukraine's? Just in general, both from an AI point of view and from the drone tech point of view, who do you think has the advantage, if any?
It's a painful topic, unfortunately. Yeah, so I would say that now Ukraine slowly started losing the initiative in the generating these ideas, like cool ideas that will be copied by Russians later. And for example, like optic fiber optic drones, somebody mentioned about them, right? So that was an idea implemented successfully, like firstly from Russian side, unfortunately. That is the way how they basically take us out from the Kursk region, right? And the same is happening now. For example, they created like these kind of modifications of Shaheds and Herines and any other long-range drones that they can use it quite efficiently for our cities. So as well as regarding AI specifically, right? Not in general, like technical ideas and advantage. They have some type of drone. It's not an FPV. It's like small wing type of drone that behaved like a swarm. So it was like a line of these kind of flight drones going one after another, and then they detect automatically targets and just aim at them. And one of the use cases they used that they just like directed these drones to the city, and then they just did this work with civilians. And like fortunately, actually, they didn't aim successfully. Their algorithm fucked up on the way. But definitely, one of the Ukrainian guys called like Flash, he takes these stories out and try to spread and explain that we have like these kind of activities. Also, recently in Shaheds, in some modifications of Shaheds, I have heard that they also deployed some AI for detection and these kind of targeting mechanisms as well. But unfortunately, I do not know a lot of details. But I would say that Russians, they are really good at technology in general, specifically with AI as well. And I think that if we think about this ethical component, right, because it sounds horrible, like when we create like AI for destroying people and create this autonomy, it actually it's like a hell, you know. But I think that currently Ukraine doesn't have choice. We just it's like, you know, with a nuclear power, like or nuclear weapon, you know that your opponent is creating these technologies, and then you will lose if you won't do it like first. So that is why with AI in military applications, I think that it's the same situation to some extent. So they are working intensively. They have some unfortunately successes in a couple of use cases. I hope that we will be the first who will basically be ready to scale and produce the higher level of autonomy. Thus, we will save our people. And
it's so important to be ahead of the curve, like to be the side that gets there first. You use that advantage for however many weeks you have that advantage for, knowing that the other side's going to catch up. So it's constant innovation.
Yeah, the biggest problem with AI is that it is really hard to copy. I mean, you will need to have much longer period of time to catch up with your opponent. Right. Because if we talk about like smaller ideas how to improve FPV drones, like for example, you can change the frequencies, you can change the tactical usage, and like these net guns or whatever, any other small tricks you can come up and implement overnight. But you won't implement the level of autonomy overnight. You will need to have years of time and top professionals working with these kind of systems with huge amount of money and investments. So that is why it's very frightening in a way that if they actually will be able to scale up this technology first, I think it will be disaster.
Wow, that's quite a doom position, but an important one. Like it's the race to get there first in terms of, and you know that other nations are going to be helping out to some degree, but they'll probably be doing it independently. I know that Germany has some AI drones, the HQ2 drones, is it? But anyway, they've got a couple now.
Yeah.
They've got their second variety is out, so they're, you know, everyone is going to be working on the same problems, but probably not all together and piling all their resources together. So, but yeah, it's going to be super important. Sarah, yeah, sorry, did you want
One
some?
more aspect, important one, regarding our allies. The entry point to the powerful AI is, of course, data. Raw data and annotated data properly, right? So that you prepare all of these sources to train the powerful models. The challenge for allies will be how they can collect like petabytes of video data with actual masking mechanisms and targets and vehicles and people and proper distribution of the objects, so that you can train and make it powerful, so that AI will be actually generalizing well under the current modern warfare. And that is the issue, because Ukrainian side is, hopefully it has enough data to train AI on. We just need to annotate it properly, construct and put everything together. Russians as well, but actually the only source how our allies can put hands on this data is basically collaboration with Ukraine.
Yeah,
And
that's really fascinating, because actually this is really important, because one thing you can say to the Americans is, like, if you really want to be ahead of the game in the world in terms of having the best tech, like, you either work with us, Ukraine, or you work with Russia. And I don't think, like, even given Trump being a class A wingnut, he's not going to be working like with Russia on their data to develop AI in collaboration with Russia. So Ukraine is the likeliest source of that. And there's a bit of leverage that Ukraine can have over the US, saying, look, if you want to be as good as you, I'm sure, want to be, then you need to work with us. And if you want to work with us, I'll tell you what, can you give us 100 ATACMs as well?
yeah, I guess, like, just to sum it up, like, doesn't matter which algorithms you have and which systems you have. If you do not have enough data that is actual for your task, then you will be ahead of the game.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Sarah, who asked this some time ago, got there. Oh no, got there in the end. Yeah, regarding the availability of interceptor drones on the front lines, are they common there or just near the cities? And I guess that question can be applied to lots of different things, because there are different types of interceptor drones. But you are going to
I can
have.
cover that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, a couple of use cases in this context. First one is the front lines. In the front lines, we have like the drones that does like air reconnaissance, sorry, like Orlan, Supercam, Orion or Zala. So, and these drones, they actually can fly like 40, 50 kilometers or more, and then actually do a lot of bad stuff for our soldiers, because of course they put targets for other pilots, and they just hit the targets. And around the year already, our soldiers are fighting with this type of drones, more or less. Well, we started this drone interception game a year ago, and I would say that we are quite successful here already. Unfortunately, Russians actually started copying this strategy, and they also hit our alternatives like Lelekas or like Shark type of drones. It's also like Wing type of drones that does like tactical intelligence. And they also apply these intersections on these interceptors.
Yeah,
On the front line.
They've been improving the amount of interceptions they've been doing recently, the Russians. So yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. But then the second type of interceptors that is actually the means of survival for Ukraine now is in the very end interceptor against Shahed and Heran and these long-range drones that Russia used to bomb Ukrainian civilians. So, and now I would say that somewhere in May we got some first successful applications, and I would say that now we have some good solutions in this regard. that catch the Shahed, for example, semi-automatically and then destroy. Now the question would be how to improve this technology and scale up in a way that no Shaheds will reach the actual civilian cities. And that requires entire entire ecosystem to set up. Not only the interceptors themselves, you need to reveal the Shahed, you need to control the flight, the direction, you need to actually then hit the target. So there are a lot of different tasks around before you apply this interceptor, and it is much more challenging task than interceptor alone, because like personnel, people, trainings, like
well,
et cetera.
luckily for the Ukrainians, you've got Eric Schmidt, who is a former CEO of
Yeah.
Google, and he has this company called SwiftBeat,
Yep.
and they say that 9 out of 10 of the Shaheds that are taken out by interceptors are taken out by his
Yeah,
interceptors.
but by his interceptors, it's like not
Yeah.
globally, you know. That's the issue. I mean, that is why I say that we have successful stories. They need to be scaled up somehow quickly.
So yeah, where I was going with that is that if you want anyone to be on side with scaling up stuff, having a billionaire on side is going to be quite useful. Who's like
quite a good idea.
Yeah, probably got a few like venture capitalists were very happy, because you know, I don't like to sing the praises of the military industrial complex here, but there's going to be a lot of money involved in successful tech. You know, the US, Europe, you know, all of these countries are going to be vying for the best tech in modern warfare. I mean, you know, the war in Ukraine is a big test bed for tech and weaponry, and everyone is looking on. And as you say, it's about extracting that data and being able to apply that to create something that's the best in show. And yeah, there is your route to making big profits down the road.
Yeah, I have heard, by the way, that we officially opened this opportunity we invite basically drone producers and you autonomous systems producers to Ukraine so that they can test like it officially in the battlefield,
Yes,
and we
test
can
in
provide the
Ukraine.
feedback. Yeah. That is a very important point. And I would say that conceptually, we have a lot of people in Ukraine who are doing tech, military tech, who believe that Ukraine should become like Silicon Valley in military technologies.
Yeah.
Because we are in a lot of questions are already quite created quite top solutions in the world. So, but with strong collaboration with West and good allies, I guess that will multiply this effect and hopefully overweight our enemies.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be singing the praises again of the military-industrial complex and making huge profits and whatnot. But what you want for Ukraine is Ukraine to have a silver lining to a very dark cloud. The dark cloud is the war in Ukraine, but they need to have options after the war of putting themselves on the map. You know, what have they been able to achieve during the war that they can kind of sell? I mean that in the broadest possible sense. Like how can they take advantage of where they are at? And one of the things is going to be weaponry technology, and there's no doubt about it. And so, you know, they need to be looking at that going forward. I mean, this is Reuters. Ukraine offers its front lines as a test bed for foreign weapons. That was what Bogdan was referencing there, which is, I think, really important. Just a few more questions, if you don't mind. And thank you so much for your time and patience here. And we'll mention fundraising again in a second. So there are so many questions. I just want to make sure that we get to a range of people here. So Darren Corrigan, thanks. Always a pleasure to have you on board. How do fiber optic drones get their signals? Pulse length or color? I don't really understand that. I mean, that's the nature of fiber optics, I guess.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't explain it in the lower level, but I know that there were issues with, like, for producers to make so that the signal from the drone in the bigger distances will come like with the high enough quality. So, and you probably know that we have arrays of the distance on which drones can fly, including fiber optics drones as well. And then at some point, I guess that it's already solved to some extent, but at some point we had a challenge how to make so that if you fly for over 20 kilometers, for example, the quality of the signal will not go down in a way that you will lose your control. So that was the big challenge. Unfortunately,
because the
Russians
Ukrainians.
again.
Ukrainians have just come out with a fixed wing 50-kilometer spool fiber optic drone, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, Russians are ahead of the game here.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think that currently we more or less started catching up with this. But yeah, they applied it first, and then they currently have bigger, I guess, production in this topic.
Interesting. Andrew seems to think that the Dutch have dump truck money into drones, and they are helping Ukraine a lot, because we know that there's a capability coalition which is run by the British and the Latvians, and they're obviously going to be helping. When you help Ukraine, I've explained this so many times, that this is not kind of free money or free help. It's not a charity often or all the time, to differing degrees, but countries are helping Ukraine, because it's the right thing to do, but it's geopolitically the right thing to do, strategically the right thing to do, but also they get feedback. Like countries, when they help, the capability coalitions are getting together to help Ukraine, say with air defense, but particularly with drones. If you're going to be helping with drones, you're also going to be getting your data back. You're going to be getting your feedback back, and that's going to help you develop your own drones back in the UK, in Latvia, and probably here with the Netherlands as well. So it is there are, it's not like there are no strings attached, but obviously all that help is really, really important for Ukraine.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, to some extent, this mechanism, like we have, like drone lab and military unit for which we are creating and with whom we are creating our drones. It's like a little mechanism that can be scaled up a lot in a sense of these collaborations like you described, because I think that the only way how you can create a solid technology in military, right, you need to do it with soldiers in the battlefield. So, and that is why when you do collaboration and like joint production lines with Ukrainians, and you're like as close to the front lines data sources as possible, then of course you will have corresponding top solutions. And I also do believe that these kind of joint production, massive productions with European countries, and not only, they will actually strengthen situation a lot. The only thing would be how to catch up with the pace, because usually you have like cycles of technologies, and if you create drone today, it will be outdated in a couple of weeks. So you need to be really quick with that. So that is a big challenge, even for Ukrainian producers. You just like produce a huge portion of drones, and then they will be used in a couple of weeks, and then most probably soldiers. By the way, most of the UAV units that are like mature enough, they have their own workshops where they just recreate drones under their requirements of the direction. So even for Ukrainian producers, it's a big challenge when we have this like a support chain that is bigger and longer to other to other countries. Even then, this challenge will be just multiplied.
Yeah, this collaboration is really important, but as you're saying, it's a constant thing. That collaboration, you need that constant feedback, because it's a changing environment. There are adaptations taking place all the time. Look, I'm just gonna shout about the fundraising, and then we'll come to like two last questions, if that's okay. I know I've had a lot of your time. So thank you very much for those who have contributed. We're at over $11,000 at the moment, and that will, as Bogdan mentioned, help out provide equipment for the 47th unit here and Danilo for 3 weeks, with the usage they have at the moment. So that's absolutely incredible. Please go to atpgeo.com/donate, follow the instructions there. And for every $20 you spend, you'll be put into a raffle. You can win one of 3 raffle prizes. One is a big bundle of merch with a signed flag, patch from the 47th Brigade, etc., etc. Another is a downed Russian FPV drone. Hopefully that get through customs, all the caveats applied to that. And one is one of 4 custom paintings by Vidro locally in Lviv, I believe, putting a modern twist on some traditional artwork there. So that's fantastic. Please be as generous as you possibly can, and thank you for all of those who have already contributed and who will contribute. And if you don't have the ability, if you don't have the funds to help out, then you can always share the video, share the link, and talk about it elsewhere. You can have a look at Copternia in if I show this again, they do have a kind of a side page on Jigaspore. They're not Jigaspore. They're associated with Jigaspore, working with Jigaspore, and they have a kind of a side page on Jigaspore's website. They also have their own Instagram page. If you're on Instagram, check out Copternia. So they looks like you've just got sort of started there. Not a huge amount of content, but it's they have a presence there as well. And yeah, so that's that. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of fundraising, in terms of what you guys do, before we have the last couple of questions?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, we have talked a lot about our activities. The only way I would summarize maybe that currently we're basically reached this specific level of production. So we produce like 10, 12 bombers a week. So in upcoming weeks or even months, we would like to increase this production a bit more, because ideally we would like to cover my father's unit as well, and maybe other friends as well. So that is one thing. And then another focus of our future, like nearest future, would be, of course, R&D technologies, like I mentioned before. So we want to improve this jumping frequency, control frequency mechanism, as well as integrate thermal cameras, so that we will cover not only daily time of work, but also nighttime. And it will, comparing with Mavics for like DJI Mavics for night bombing, it will be very extremely efficiently, economically wise. So it will be like almost 10x difference for the same task. Like you bomb with DJI thermal for matrice drone versus you have like 10-hour bombers, or like more or less like 8-10 bombers per one thermal DJI Mavic. So if we compare with this task of bombing, then it will be way much cheaper, and I guess efficient for some specific tasks.
So many questions to choose from. There are a bunch of AI ones from Benny Pie, as ever. Chinese have had breakthrough training models without data annotation. Absolute zero pay from May 2025 to the data bottleneck may be solved one day. But he says in robotics, AI training can be done in a simulation with accurate physics and time accelerated. And when trained, the model is installed in the robot to speed up training. Could this happen with drones? I don't know if you understand that question. I don't understand that question.
Really good one, actually. So whether you can use simulated environment, like 3D graph like environment, where you, for example, FPV drone simulator, you do not need to fly in the field, you can do it in your laptop, right? Like playing a game. So can you use in this environment data to train your AI to detect models and fly and behave properly? Well, so unfortunately, the system that has been trained in these virtual environments, it won't generalize well to the real challenges. Although it's a very important, I would say, point in the entire cycle of AI development, because when you develop your AI, you want to make sure that it actually, you need to do like a basic checks, right? How you can do these basic checks that this new release of the model is actually at least good enough to do the work, right? So you probably need to go to the testing ground and then just spend your entire day just to test it. But you actually can do it a bit cheaper. So you can combine simulation environment versus like testing ground versus like real battlefield. So, and you just have these different options how you validate your system. Unfortunately, simulation is not enough, but it is a very like cheap and efficient way how to do at least some very basic checks whether your system didn't like go crazy.
JR says, in addition to Benny's question, I don't know if it's that question, do you receive information from units or other drone manufacturers about Russian implementations that might be relevant to your own drone development? So yeah, are there many sources that you have for your feedback?
Yeah, we have a lot of channels where basically we try to understand what is happening on that side. And there are plenty of good ideas there as well. But in specifically bombing technology, I'm not sure they are ahead. We have seen first examples this summer that they started actually using their FPVs for bombing technology, not kamikaze. But yeah, specifically in this topic, I'm not sure there are plenty of useful stuff.
Cool. And final couple here. So Daniel Smith and Dan was with me and the team when we came to Lviv. Sad that we didn't meet up with you, Bohdan. Didn't know you then, but we came to Lviv. We dropped off some cars for Car for Ukraine and visited Dzyga's Paw in their awesome house. What peak G? So Dan is doing some stuff at the moment, trying to do some drone research in the UK with regard to doing something with that going forward. But anyway, what peak G forces have Ukrainian FPV interceptor drones successfully survived during experimental deployment methods, catapult, pneumatic, or explosive launch? And I mean, I don't know if you can answer this. And what specific electronic components or design modifications proved critical for maintaining functionality after high acceleration launch? Wow, check that out. Okay, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get the first portion of the question. Like, could you elaborate maybe a bit
Yeah.
more?
So what peak G forces? So the amount of force on the G force on these drones, interceptor drones, have successfully have. So what G forces have Ukrainian interceptor or FPV drones successfully survived during deployment methods? So they're
Okay,
catapulted
I got
out.
it. Yeah. Oh, I have zero information about that, unfortunately. Yeah, can't
So
say anything interesting.
sorry, Dan. Your question was too geeky. Like, come on. Thanks, so Dad. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
And the
I'm
final
too
one.
lay person for that.
Yeah. The final one. Martin Johansson says, "How will countries' military drones be? Sorry, will there be smaller stocks, but instead focus on having rapid production of the latest technology?" There's a bit I just can't understand the middle of that question. But I guess this is a quality versus quantity, maybe, as far as investments. Yeah, I
Understood.
mean, so is there? I mean, we talk often about scaling up, but
Hmm.
also, you know, units need decent drones. So there needs to be, because when I was speaking to Richard Woodruff, he was talking about how he's seen warehouses where they've got like whole loads of drones have been sent back because they've got issues with them, and then he's spending
Yep.
time, not his drones, he's like really big on quality. So Richard Woodruff with his drones that get sent out there to his Achilles unit, they work really hard on making sure everything's perfect. But with so many drones, that's not the case, and then that is inefficient. So you get the drones, they're not fit for purpose, they get sent back, and then someone's got to make it better. But a bit like I was comparing it to the Lego. When you build a Lego model, it's quicker to build it, right? But then when you want to fix it, like say you got some pieces missing and that, like, it takes you ages to find exactly the right piece, mess around with it. Actually takes you longer to fix a Lego model than to build it from scratch, and so it's really inefficient. So anyway, you know, quality versus quantity, there's a tension there.
Yeah, it's a very good challenge, actually. As I already mentioned, in Ukraine, like military units, they usually have their workshops where they try to actualize the technology. If you got like the whatever, actually, which quality of drone you got, if it's even perfect, then you need to update it like with some details just to be able to work with that. We do have issues with some producers, but in the very end, we have quite cool mechanisms in the level of country where actually the quality is controlled. So we have like centralized markets, like 2 centralized markets where you can just choose the equipment and buy. So we have like Bray One market where you
Yeah.
can, yeah, and we have like dot chain market. So, and I believe that this mechanism, they will allow first thing first, set up the low prices in the market, because those producers that produce the same like good, but actually with the same quality, but with the lower prices, they will take the market, right? So it will regulate the price really well, but it also will regulate the quality, because if you have bad reputation, you won't be able to close the contract with a bigger scale. So I think that in this
Interesting.
regard, this mechanism should actually help a lot. But I would say that you need to scale both. Obvious answer, right? But the question is how to do it. I think that the proper answer would be, for example, we have a big FPV producer that is successful, and it is very drones. Maybe you heard about it. Yeah, so their idea was that they have a very good experience in this production. That is why let's try maybe to outsource the scaling, like, and make it horizontal. Like, we have a plenty of different companies that will be out of the business because bigger players ate the market in FPV drones, right? But how we can still make it work, that very drone will ask a bunch of these players that are smaller but still can produce drones. They can provide the quality control mechanisms. They can provide the R&D ideas. They can provide like all of the recipes, how they do it efficiently. And then it will be like subcontractors of very drone who scale up the good high quality drones. At the same time, very drone is doing like R&D and creating new product lines, for example.
What's the name of that? Very drone.
It's very drone. I can write. It's a Ukrainian word. Very. It's like a.
Because I was
wind.
there was it wouldn't be then. There was a where's my patch? Got yeah, there's you won't be able to see it. There's a patch over there. Green. I went to a drone place in Ukraine that was fascinating and had a walk around them, and I just forgot what the name of them is. But anyway, not to worry, not to worry. Okay, well, look, thank you very much. Well, okay, final question. Sorry, Bogdan. JR, I do have a question, or not JR. This is for JR, who's been fielding the questions. Do we have an update on the new Ukrainian NATO 556mm anti-drone rifle ammo? Is it effective and can it be mass produced? I've talked about this a number of times, but they've got this new ammo that's kind of a bit like a shotgun sort of cartridge. And I'm thinking that every single soldier absolutely needs to have magazines of this to give them the best chance they possibly can. Have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I have seen a couple of news on that topic. Unfortunately, I haven't read the efficiency. I know that these net guns actually are efficient against that. That is like, like a last second safe mechanism, right? It's at least a plan B what to do. And net guns basically are definitely efficient, and like tiny gunshots, like a pistol, like you can make one shot only. But I haven't heard about this well, I heard about them, but I haven't heard the efficiency and tests in the battlefield, unfortunately.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'm just going to say a few thanks to people who have helped out with the channel personally. So Anthony Jeffrey here just sent an email to Yoko Baromprom for RPG plans to fit long-range drones. Hope they use the info that I sent. You get this quite a lot with people freely, giving information on and with ideas. There are certainly so many people. Like I was earlier getting quite excited about a little trampoline landing mechanism for drones, but that's awesome, Anthony Jeffrey, and thank you for seeking to help out in this war, and thanks for helping the channel. King Raccoon, thanks for having you on board, and buy more beer. I certainly will attempt to do that. I'm not very well at the moment, so I haven't even had a glass of red wine in the last couple of nights, so things are going bad there. So I need to let my throat. Sitting and talking like for 6 hours a day, which is kind of like what I do these days, is not very good for a throat that's like razor blades. Kevin, thank you very much for your support there, mate. I really appreciate that as ever. And Johnny Nebregard, thank you. And I just want to point people towards atpgeo.com. And at the moment we're over $11,000. Let's get that up to as much as we can over the course of the rest of this month before we move on to our next project. But that will be absolutely fantastic. You've seen where this money is going in terms of the explanations that Bogdan has given, the units that they're going to go to, which is this guy here, Danilo Dan, and the 47th Brigade. So the provision of all this equipment will help out these guys. You can contribute to all these different components to the drones, and we have already raised enough for these guys to have drones, hopefully for 3 weeks, and that is absolutely fantastic. Let's get them some more drones, and as you heard from Bogdan, he's working on how to increase the capacity of his drone manufacturing, so that he can provide more units or more drones to the same unit, just in a more timely fashion. So that's fantastic. Look, Bogdan, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you think we haven't talked about that you'd like to add in?
Yeah, I guess we have covered it pretty well. I just want to thank you again for your support, Jonathan, and all of the audience here who are interested in what is happening in our country, who are supportive and who basically donate and make so that we have means to fight further.
Absolutely, yeah. And as JR says, and this is really important, by the way, but Dzyga's Poor, which is kind of overseeing this charity fundraising project, is really transparent. On their website, they have all the monies that are broken down. These guys are good guys, like Dzyga's Poor and Drone Labs too. Even stuff like the cost of coffee is named in a budget overview. So they show, not that it will be relevant for this project, but when they have their own kind of individual projects, they will tell you, which units got what kit and which person took it and blah blah blah. It's broken down. Transparency is absolutely fantastic. So you are in safe hands with Dzyga's Poor, and no doubt with Drone Labs as well. Really happy to hopefully help you out, Bogdan, as much as possible, and really happy that you've come on and spent the time with us. And hopefully the audience, the team here at ATP Geopolitics are happy to contribute to what seems like an absolutely fantastic project. So thank you so much, mate.
Thank you very much.
Cool beans. Well, look, stay on the line. Thank you very much to the audience out there, to the team who have been here and listened to Bogdan and asked some brilliant questions. Sorry, I didn't get all the questions read out. There were more still on top of the ones we did, but Bogdan was really good at answering those questions. And the last thing I want to say, fantastic chat. Thank you, Daniel. The last thing I want to say is this is regard to helping out with Dzyga's Poor. Now, in the description to the video below, I just found out I use Microsoft Edge to do all my videos with, because it takes up less computing power when I use maps. I started doing that when I started doing a lot of my mapping, and Chrome was really hungry, and my old laptop, it was making it all stutter and not be very smooth. So I switched to Edge. And it turns out that when I do searches on Bing, I'm not a big fan of searching on Bing, to be honest. I much prefer Chrome. But when I search on Bing, I get rewards. These are called Microsoft rewards. And it's basically, they're trying to just make you use Bing rather than Chrome, right? But actually, Dzyga's Poor are listed on as a charity that you can give your Microsoft rewards to. So I've just given, it turns out that over the last however long I've been doing this, I've accrued enough points to give 11,000 points of rewards to Dzyga's Poor, which equates to something like £11. Okay, it's not like massive, but it's kind of money for nothing. So if you are someone who uses, or maybe at work, you have to use Microsoft, you have to use Bing or Edge, then link up your account. There's, I think, if you look, sorry to take time with this, but this is really important for fundraising. If you go below to the description to this video, you can see you can actually join your rewards to mine, and then that will generate more points for me that I will donate to Dzyga's Poor. And I think I don't know, yeah, there's a link to Dzyga's Poor, the rewards there. Benny Pie is going to do a video to show people how to do this. But basically, if you use Microsoft to do your searching, then you can, just through searching, generate income for Dzyga's Poor. And you can set it up so it automatically, all your points automatically go to Dzyga's Poor. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in at the end. I know it's not quite relevant to this, to what Bogdan is doing, but this all helps. Like, money to Dzyga's Poor, money to these charities is really important. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that one in there. Right, enough of me. Certainly not enough of Bogdan, but maybe next time maybe we can have a chat again. Sorry, Bogdan, and we can discuss any developments and stuff going forward. So
Yep.
I've really enjoyed
actually
it.
I would be really happy to be your guest. Like at least one more time, we can do some technological overviews, like once per month or like one per 2 months, so that I can actually maybe prepare a bit better, so that gather some information what is happening. If you would provide like some questions from audience in advance, then it would even help more. So we
Yeah,
can do
that
that
sounds absolutely
definitely.
brilliant. Yeah, but I have to say, you didn't need to prepare, mate. You were absolutely on point, so there's no
Thank
problem
you.
at all. Really good stuff. Can I just say, sorry to go on about these rewards. Daniel Stenestam, I have 269,000 reward points doing nothing. Go to the link below, redeem them by giving them to Jiggersport if you don't mind. And Jiggersport will probably in about 6 weeks, I think it takes, will receive a bunch of money from your free points. So, or not from your points. That's amazing. Okay. Thanks again. Sorry to bang on. Take care, everybody. Stay on the line. Bogdan, Tulip Pips, and of course, Slava Ukraini.
Bye bye.